In today's draw-dropping episode of Brainspill, we're going to talk about this guy. Jesus! Oh. Sorry if you're eating. I didn't realise it would be that graphic. This is Brainspill, my name is Tank, and today we're talking about the man that drank so much radioactive water that his jaw literally fell off. In the vast world of science, there are stories that stand out not only for their groundbreaking discoveries or the remarkable achievements people reach, but few people are remembered for the tragic consequences that befall them in the field of science. The tale of Eben Byers is certainly the kind of person who, in history, is often remembered for the wrong things. Eben Byers, born in 1880, was a wealthy industrialist and amateur athlete from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, earning himself accolades as a US amateur golfing champion in 1906 and a runner-up in the 1902 and 1903 games. Given all things, he was a healthy young man. He was also successful at a young age, becoming the chairman of his father's iron company. So yeah, you're a guy who grew up with the silver spoon in his mouth and was fortunate enough to be in a position where he could have a great job, be fit and active, and hopefully nothing goes catastrophically wrong later down the line. In a completely unrelated topic at the time, and something that would have absolutely no connection later on in this story, he lived during a time where the world was fascinated by the newfound property called radium. Radium was touted as a miracle substance with potential health benefits, and it quickly found its way into various consumer products, from cosmetics to tonic drinks. And you wonder how many energy drinks stay on the market these days. Delicious, delicious radium. I'm not saying that energy drinks have radium in them, don't sue me, but if I was to have a guess, I imagine it's something pretty close to that. In 1927, Byers injured his arm falling from a railway sleeping berth, and for the persistent pain he was suffering, a doctor suggested he take Radithor, a patent medicine manufactured by William J.A. Bailey. I know that hindsight is a great thing, but if you were given something that was marketed as a miracle cure, maybe you should get a second opinion before you start chugging that stuff like it's going out of fashion. The problem here was that Dr. Bailey was actually a Harvard dropout, claiming to be a doctor, the good Dr. Bailey, when he wasn't actually a qualified doctor to begin with. Basically, he used the title of doctor to give himself legitimacy and then made a stack of cash selling this new craze to people. He offered physicians a 1-to-6 kickback on each dose prescribed, so no wonder people were given the medicine left, right and centre when people were making bank off this. There's money to be made, people, even in dangerous chemicals. Byers began consuming this radium-infused tonic, believing it would improve his health and vitality. He drank copious amounts of it over several years. Radithor, a product sold without proper scientific testing or regulation, contained high levels of radium. And to perhaps be a little bit naive at the time, this decision was probably the poorest decision that Byers could have ever taken in his entire life. Byers started taking this frequently, basically feeling bumped up and vitalised after taking it. However, this soon stopped in October 1930 when he started feeling not so great. Initially, this tonic miracle cure likely didn't have any major effects on him, given the fact that he was only taking it for a short period of time. But after 1,400 doses in such a short period of time, you'd think that he might come across some problems eventually. And that he did. He started coming across some fairly common problems, such as a dramatic loss of weight, so he decided to start coming off it. That is understandable. Something else he suffered from, which people would expect when you're having a miracle cure, is that the teeth start to fall out of your own head. That's probably not what he expected, and for good reason he stopped taking it, because this was literally killing him. Not only that, but he also had killer headaches all the time, so he was in a pretty bad way. Unbeknownst to Byers, the radioactive substance he consumed was slowly but surely wreaking havoc on his body. Radium's alpha particles are highly ionising, and their interaction with living tissues can lead to severe damage. Over time, the radiation exposure resulted in the deterioration of his jawbone, leading to excruciating pain and disfigurement. The idea of Radithor being a wonder miracle was quickly coming undone as people realised that this couldn't have been further from the truth. So in 1931, the Federal Trade Commission had started investigating this. Having been in touch with Byers, they asked if he could testify with his experience of using Radithor. Whilst he initially agreed to do this, his health deteriorated to such a point where he couldn't physically leave his home. So the lawyer came to his house to come see him. And oh boy, what a sight to behold. By this point, however, his health had changed a lot. So much so that in the years prior, Byers' jaw had to be removed surgically, leaving him permanently disfigured and looking like this. This from something you've been prescribed by a doctor. Yeah, this was an incredibly unfortunate set of events that changed his entire life forever. This is why I never do anything physical, means that I don't injure myself, meaning that I don't ever have to have some radium-filled tonic water to kill me. I'd rather just sit in front of a desk all day, thank you very much. The lawyer who came to see him reported Byers' whole upper jaw was missing except 2 front teeth, and most of his lower jaw had also been removed, and that the remaining bone tissue of his body was disintegrating quickly. Holes were forming in his skull, and, as you might imagine, he didn't live much longer after this, passing away on the 31st of March 1932. This was, of course, largely attributed to the radiation poisoning he'd been exposed to. The fallout from this tragic experience led to increased scrutiny of radium-containing products and ultimately to stricter regulations of the use of radioactive substances in consumer goods. Meaning people like Dr. Bailey couldn't peddle their people like that anymore without going under intense scrutiny. So, whilst they managed to close the doors on this somewhat, the damage, to Byers at least, had already been done. Not only that, but these miracle cures suddenly became a lot less appetising when they saw the results of what happened to people that took these miracle cures. Manufacturers of such products faced huge lawsuits, and Byers' case became a rallying point for advocates of consumer protection and medical ethics. The Federal Trade Commission issued an order against Bailey's business to cease and desist from various representations therefore made by them, including the incredibly bold claim that Radithor had therapeutic values to it. I think this was anything but therapeutic. While perhaps it's not known at this time or not really appreciated to the same amount, the importance of government regulation and an oversight into ensuring safety of consumer products is paramount. Byers' suffering brought to light the necessity of rigorous testing and regulations for substances which have severe health risks, particularly in a marketed health benefit tonic. So I think it's pretty clear that manufacturers should have an awareness and a responsibility to make sure that they don't go completely off the rails and sell anything to anyone which ends up killing people. I mean, not only from a moral standpoint, but also from the fact that if they did that, they would probably get their asses sued into the ground, so any reason to avoid that, it's worth not putting radium in your products, for whatever reason you decide you're going to do that. Because it's all fun and games until someone's jaw literally falls off. There should be accountability for these sorts of things, but of course as time goes on, there are always new products that come out, new dangers and risks that we don't know about before, and new things that people just presume are completely safe because a doctor's told them it. So, what can we learn from this? Well, despite everything I've just said in the past minute, if you're ever face to face with a doctor and they hand you what they call a miracle cure, maybe get a second opinion, or better yet, if you are able to do this, test it for radiation, because you never know, it might be just the next Radithor waiting just for you. If you guys liked that video, here's another one just like it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Fantastic.